English Daily, the podcast.
Your English journey starts now. Hey, English learners! Welcome back to your podcast, English Daily, the podcast.
Yes, we're so happy to have you here today.
Today's episode is all about how to be more confident and how to discipline your thinking.
That's right, and we're going to make it really practical for you.
So, whether you're a beginner or already speaking well, you'll find something useful here.
Let's dive right in.
So, Jack, let's start with the basics. What do you think confidence really means? Because I feel like a lot of people have the wrong idea about it.
That's a great question, Anna. I think confidence is often misunderstood. People think it's about being loud or being the center of attention, but it's actually something different. It's more about trusting yourself and your abilities, even when things are uncertain.
Exactly. I love that you said that. I used to think confidence meant never feeling nervous or never doubting yourself. But that's not realistic at all, right?
Right. Even the most confident people feel nervous sometimes. The difference is that they don't let those feelings stop them from taking action. They acknowledge the nervousness, but move forward anyway.
Honestly, I want to share a personal story here. When I first started hosting podcasts, I was extremely nervous. My hands would shake, my voice would quiver, and I would literally rehearse every single sentence in my head before saying it.
Wow, really? I had no idea you felt like that, Anna. You always seem so calm and put together on air.
That's the thing, Jack. Appearances can be deceiving. I remember one time, right before our first episode recording, I was so nervous that I actually thought about canceling. I kept telling myself, who am I to think I can do this? I'm not an expert. People will think I'm foolish.
That's such a common thought pattern, though. What changed for you?
Well, I realized that confidence isn't about feeling ready or feeling perfect. It's about taking action despite the fear. I decided to do it scared rather than not do it at all. And you know what? That first episode wasn't perfect at all. I made mistakes, I stumbled over words, but I did it anyway.
That's so powerful, Anna. I think a lot of our listeners can relate to that feeling of wanting to be perfect before starting something. But the truth is, confidence is built through action, not before action.
Absolutely. And another important thing to understand is that confidence is not a fixed trait. It's not something you're born with and that's it. It's actually a skill that anyone can develop with practice.
That's interesting. So you're saying confidence is like a muscle. The more we exercise it, the stronger it gets?
Yes, exactly. That's such a great analogy. And just like a muscle, it can also weaken if we don't use it. That's why we need to practice confidence regularly, not just wait for it to magically appear.
That's a great comparison. I think about my own journey with confidence too. When I first started learning English, I was so afraid of making mistakes in front of others. I would stay silent in class because I didn't want to sound stupid.
That's so common, Jack. So many learners feel that way. What helped you overcome it?
I think what helped was changing my mindset about mistakes. I started viewing them as learning opportunities instead of failures. Every mistake I made was actually feedback, showing me what I needed to work on.
That's a powerful shift. Can you give us an example?
Sure. I remember one time I was trying to order coffee in English, and I completely messed up the pronunciation. I said, "I want a cup of coffee," but I pronounced it in a way that sounded completely different. The barista looked at me so confused.
Oh no, that's so funny, but also so relatable.
Right? At first, I felt embarrassed, but then I realized that not only did I get my coffee eventually, but I also learned the correct pronunciation. So actually, that awkward moment taught me more than any textbook could.
That's exactly what we mean. Confidence grows through experience, through trying, through making mistakes and learning from them. It's a process, not an overnight transformation.
And I think another important point is that confidence is specific to different areas. You can be confident in one area, but not in another. Like, I'm confident in my English speaking now, but when it comes to public speaking in general, I still get nervous.
That's so true. Confidence is domain specific. You might be confident cooking, but nervous about driving. And that's completely normal. The goal isn't to be confident about everything. It's to build confidence in the areas that matter to you.
Anna, let's talk about something really important. How are our thoughts connected to our confidence levels?
Oh, this is such a crucial topic, Jack. Our thoughts literally shape our reality. If we constantly tell ourselves we're not good enough, we'll believe it, and that belief will hold us back. On the flip side, if we train ourselves to think more positively and rationally, our confidence will naturally grow.
Can you explain that a bit more? How exactly do our thoughts affect our confidence?
Sure, think about it this way. Every time you want to try something new, what's the first thing that happens in your mind? You have thoughts about it, right? You might think, I can do this, or I'm probably going to fail.
Right. I see what you mean. So those initial thoughts set the tone for everything that follows.
Exactly. If you think, I'm going to fail, you might not even try. Or if you do try, you'll be so focused on proving yourself right that you'll be anxious the whole time. But if you think, I'm going to try my best and learn something, you're already in a much better mental space.
That makes so much sense. I want to share something that happened to me recently. I was asked to give a presentation at work, and my first thought was, oh no, I'm going to mess this up. I'm not a good presenter.
That's such a common reaction. What did you do?
At first, I let those thoughts take over. I spent days stressing about it, imagining all the ways it could go wrong. I even thought about asking to be excused from it.
But you didn't, right? What changed?
Well, I realized that I was spending all my energy on negative predictions that hadn't even happened yet. So I started to challenge those thoughts. I asked myself, what evidence do I have that I'm going to fail? What evidence do I have that I can succeed?
That's a really powerful technique, Jack. What did you find when you asked yourself those questions?
I realized that I actually had more evidence for success than failure. I'd given presentations before. I'd received positive feedback. I knew the material well. The negative thoughts were just habits, not facts.
That's such an important insight, Jack. Our minds often jump to the worst-case scenario without any real evidence. It's like our brain is wired to focus on potential threats even when they're not likely.
Exactly. And that's where disciplining your thinking comes in. We need to train ourselves to notice those negative thought patterns and replace them with more balanced, realistic thoughts.
Yes, it's not about positive thinking in a naive way. It's about realistic thinking. Instead of, I'm going to fail, you think, I might face challenges, but I have the skills to handle them.
I love that distinction. So it's not about pretending everything will be perfect. It's about acknowledging that you can handle imperfection.
Absolutely. And another thing I want to mention is the importance of being aware of your inner dialogue. What are you saying to yourself throughout the day? Are you your biggest critic or your biggest supporter?
Honestly, I think I've been my biggest critic for most of my life. It's something I'm actively working on changing.
That takes real self-awareness, Jack, and the fact that you recognize it is already a big step. We can't change what we don't acknowledge.
You know what helped me? I started keeping a journal of my thoughts. I would write down the negative things I was telling myself and then challenge them. It was like having a conversation with myself.
That's a great technique. Can you give us an example?
Sure. One thing I used to think was, I'm not smart enough to advance in my career. So I wrote it down and then asked myself, is this 100% true? What evidence contradicts this? And I realized that I'd received promotions, positive evaluations, and compliments on my work. The negative thoughts were just habits, not facts.
That's such a powerful exercise, Jack. I think our listeners should definitely try this. Write down your negative thoughts and then examine them objectively, like a scientist studying a hypothesis.
Yes, and the goal isn't to replace every negative thought with an overly positive one. It's to find the truth. If there's no evidence for the negative thought, you don't have to believe it.
Now let's get really practical, Jack. What are some specific techniques we can use to discipline our thinking and build confidence?
There are so many great techniques, Anna. Let me share a few that have worked for me and that I think our listeners can start using right away.
I'm excited to hear these.
First technique is called thought challenging. We briefly mentioned this, but let's go deeper. The idea is to catch yourself when you're having a negative thought and actively question it. Ask yourself, what evidence supports this thought? What evidence contradicts it? Is there a more balanced way to look at this situation?
That sounds simple, but can be really powerful. How do we actually practice this in daily life?
It starts with awareness. You need to train yourself to notice when you're having negative thoughts. One way to do this is to pay attention to your emotions. If you suddenly feel anxious, upset, or discouraged, that's a clue that you might be having a negative thought.
That's such good advice. Our emotions are signals, right? They're telling us what's happening in our minds.
Exactly. So the next time you feel bad, pause and ask yourself, what am I thinking right now? What thought is causing this feeling?
I love that technique. What's another one?
Another great technique is reframing. This means taking a negative or neutral situation and consciously choosing to view it from a different, more positive angle. Not in a fake way, but in a realistic way that highlights opportunities or lessons.
Can you give us an example of reframing?
Of course, let's say you didn't get a job you applied for. A negative reframing would be, I didn't get this job, but now I know what the interview process is like and I'll be better prepared for the next one. Or, this job wasn't the right fit anyway. Now I can look for something that's a better match.
That's a great example. It's not about pretending the rejection didn't hurt or that it's a good thing. It's about finding the learning or the opportunity within the difficulty.
Exactly. Another technique is positive self-talk. This means consciously replacing your inner critic with a more supportive voice. Instead of, I can't do this, you tell yourself, I'm learning how to do this, or I may not be able to do it yet, but I'm working on it.
The words we use with ourselves are so important. I can't versus I'm learning, those are completely different mindsets.
They really are. And I think another powerful technique is visualization. This means mentally rehearsing success. Athletes do this all the time, but it works for anything.
How exactly does visualization work?
You close your eyes and imagine yourself successfully completing the task you're nervous about. You visualize every detail, what you're saying, how you're standing, the environment around you, how confident you feel. The more vivid and detailed, the better.
That sounds almost too simple, but I know it really works. I've done it before presentations, and it helps calm my nerves.
It works because your brain can't tell the difference between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. So when you visualize success, you're essentially training your brain for success.
That's fascinating. What about affirmations? Are those helpful?
Affirmations can be helpful, but there's a right way and a wrong way to do them. The wrong way is saying things you don't actually believe, like, I'm the best, when you don't feel that way. It can actually backfire.
What's the right way?
The right way is to use affirmations that are believable and specific to you. Instead of, I'm the best, you might say, I'm improving every day, or I have the ability to learn and grow. These feel more authentic and are easier to actually believe.
That's a great point. Authentic affirmations are more effective than exaggerated ones. I also want to mention the technique of gratitude practice. This might seem unrelated to confidence, but it actually helps a lot.
How does gratitude relate to confidence?
When you regularly practice gratitude, you start focusing on the positive things in your life rather than what you lack. This builds a more positive overall mindset, which naturally makes you feel more confident. It's hard to feel confident when you're constantly focusing on what you don't have or what you're not good at.
That's such a good point. Gratitude shifts your focus from scarcity to abundance.
Exactly. And it's so easy to do. You just write down 3 things you're grateful for every day. Or you can even just think about them in the morning. It only takes a few minutes.
I'll definitely try that. One more technique I want to mention is taking action despite fear. This is probably the most important one.
What do you mean by that?
I mean that confidence doesn't come before action. It comes after action. You don't wait until you feel confident to do something. You do the thing, and then you build confidence from the experience. It's like the old saying, feel the fear and do it anyway.
That's so true. I think we all wait for motivation or confidence to strike before we take action, but it actually works the other way around.
Exactly. So if there's something you've been putting off because you don't feel ready or confident, my advice is to just start. Do it scared. Do it imperfectly, but do it. The confidence will follow.
Ah, Jack, I want to talk about something that I think is really important for building long-term confidence. What are your thoughts on building confidence through small wins?
Oh, this is such an important concept, Anna. Small wins are basically the foundation of real, sustainable confidence. When you achieve small successes repeatedly, they accumulate and create a powerful belief in your abilities.
Can you explain why small wins are so effective?
Sure. First, they're achievable. When you set a big goal like become fluent in English, it can feel overwhelming and even impossible. But when you break it down into small, manageable steps like learn 10 new vocabulary words today, it's much more doable.
That makes sense. And those small achievements create momentum, right?
Exactly. Each small win gives you a little boost of motivation and energy to tackle the next challenge. It's like building momentum. The more you achieve, the more you want to achieve.
I want to share a personal story about this. When I was learning to drive, I was absolutely terrified. The idea of being behind the wheel of a 2-ton machine was so scary to me.
Really? You seem so confident now.
I know, right? But I really was terrified. What helped me was breaking down the learning process into tiny steps. First, I just sat in the car and got comfortable with the controls. Then I practiced starting and stopping in an empty parking lot. I didn't even try driving on the road for weeks.
That sounds like a slow process, but I'm guessing it worked.
It worked amazingly. By focusing on one small skill at a time, I built competence gradually. Each small win, successfully changing lanes, parallel parking, navigating a roundabout, added to my confidence. Before I knew it, I was driving everywhere without anxiety.
Impressive. That's such a great example. And the key is that you didn't try to do everything at once. You gave yourself permission to start small.
Yes, and I think that's something a lot of people struggle with. They want instant results and try to do too much too soon. When they don't succeed immediately, they get discouraged and give up.
That's so true. I think the pressure to be perfect and to see immediate results kills a lot of motivation. People don't realize that every expert was once a beginner who made mistakes and kept going.
That's such an important point. So my advice to our listeners is start small. Set tiny, achievable goals. Celebrate each small win and trust that the confidence will build over time.
Another aspect of small wins that I love is that it creates evidence. When you look back at all the small things you've accomplished, you have proof that you're capable. It's hard to argue with results.
Can you explain what you mean by that?
Well, let's say you're feeling insecure about your English abilities. If you look back and see that you've successfully had conversations, written emails, understood movies, all these small wins, it's harder to believe I'm not good at English. The evidence contradicts that belief.
That's a really powerful way to look at it. Your past achievements become proof of your future capabilities.
Exactly. And I think another benefit of focusing on small wins is that it makes the process enjoyable. When you're constantly chasing big goals and not seeing progress, it's frustrating. But when you celebrate small victories along the way, the journey becomes more rewarding.
I totally agree. It's important to enjoy the process, not just focus on the destination. So, how can our listeners apply this in their English learning?
Great question. Instead of setting a vague goal like improve my English, set specific small goals. Maybe it's have a 5-minute conversation with a native speaker this week, or watch one English video without subtitles, or learn 5 new phrasal verbs.
Those are such concrete, achievable goals. And when you accomplish them, make sure to acknowledge yourself. Don't just move on to the next thing. Take a moment to feel proud.
Yes, self-celebration is so important. It reinforces the belief that you're capable and deserving of success.
Let's get real for a moment, Jack. Even with all these techniques, we're all going to experience self-doubt and negative thoughts. How do we deal with those difficult moments?
That's such an important topic, Anna, because the reality is that negative thoughts don't just disappear. They're a part of being human. The key is not to eliminate them completely, but to change our relationship with them.
What do you mean by changing our relationship with them?
I mean that we don't have to believe every thought we have. We can observe our thoughts without getting caught up in them. It's like standing on the bank of a river and watching the water flow by. You can notice the thoughts passing through without jumping in.
That's a beautiful metaphor. I love that image of observing thoughts like passing water.
It really helps to create distance between yourself and your thoughts. When you realize that you're not your thoughts, you're the awareness behind them, it gives you power over them.
What are some practical ways to do this when you're in the middle of a negative thought spiral?
One technique is called naming. When you notice a negative thought, you can say to yourself, I'm having a thought that I'm not good enough, or I'm noticing that I'm worrying about failure. By naming the thought, you create separation from it.
That sounds simple but effective. It's like you're stepping back and observing yourself rather than being lost in the thought.
Exactly. Another technique is to ask yourself, is this thought helpful? Most of the time, negative thoughts aren't helpful. They're just noise that keeps you stuck. So you can consciously choose to focus on something more constructive.
I love that question. Is this thought helpful? It immediately shifts you from automatic thinking to intentional thinking.
Do you have any personal stories about dealing with intense self-doubt, Anna?
Oh, absolutely. There was a time when I really struggled with self-doubt. It was when I was considering starting my own business. I had this amazing idea, but every time I thought about pursuing it, my mind would fill with reasons why I would fail.
That's such a common experience when you're thinking about something big and new.
Yes, I would think things like, who am I to think I can run a business? I don't have enough experience. I'll probably lose all my money. Everyone will see that I'm a fraud.
That's really intense. What helped you push through that?
Several things. First, I started journaling and doing the thought-challenging exercises we talked about earlier. I wrote down all my fears and then systematically examined them.
What did you find?
I found that most of my fears were based on imagination, not reality. Yes, there were risks, but the worst-case scenarios I was imagining were extremely unlikely. And even if they happened, I knew I could handle them.
That's such an important realization. The fear was about things that probably wouldn't happen.
Exactly. Another thing that helped was talking to people who had done what I wanted to do. I reached out to entrepreneurs and asked them about their experiences. Almost all of them had similar fears and doubts, but they did it anyway.
That's so true. When you talk to people who have achieved what you want, you realize that doubt is normal. Everyone experiences it.
Yes, and the final thing that really helped was making a decision to value growth over comfort. I realized that staying in my comfort zone felt safe, but it wasn't leading me to where I wanted to go. I had to be willing to feel uncomfortable to grow.
That's such a powerful mindset shift. Comfort is the enemy of growth sometimes.
So, to all our listeners who are experiencing self-doubt, you're not alone. Everyone feels this way. The difference is that confident people don't let doubt stop them. They feel the fear and take action anyway.
Anna, let's wrap up with one more important topic. How do we maintain confidence in our daily lives? Because it's one thing to build confidence, but another thing to keep it strong.
That's such an important question, Jack. Building confidence is a journey, but maintaining it is equally challenging. Here are some things I think are key.
I'm all ears.
First, consistency is huge. Confidence is like a garden. You can't just water it once and expect it to flourish forever. You need to tend to it regularly through practice, positive self-talk, and stepping outside your comfort zone.
That's a great analogy. What else?
Second, surround yourself with supportive people. The people we spend time with have a huge impact on our confidence. If you're constantly around people who criticize you, put you down, or make you feel small, it's hard to maintain confidence. But if you're around people who believe in you and support you, it makes a difference world.
That's so true. I think we underestimate how much our environment affects us.
We really do. I had to make a conscious decision to spend less time with people who were negative and more time with people who lifted me up. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary for my growth.
That's a brave choice. Not everyone is willing to do that.
Happy. Third, keep learning and growing. Confidence comes from competence, and competence comes from continued learning. Never stop improving your skills, whether it's English or anything else you're passionate about.
I love that. What about when we face setbacks? How do we maintain confidence then?
Great question. Setbacks are inevitable, and they're actually tests of your confidence. When things don't go as planned, it's easy to fall back into negative thinking. But this is when you need to be most compassionate with yourself.
What do you mean by being compassionate with yourself?
I mean, not beating yourself up over failures or mistakes. Instead of, I'm a failure, you think, this didn't work out this time, but I can learn from it. Instead of, I always mess up, you think, everyone makes mistakes. This is just part of the learning process.
That's so important. Self-compassion is really underrated when it comes to maintaining confidence.
It's absolutely crucial. And another thing I want to mention is the importance of taking care of your physical health. When you're tired, hungry, or not getting enough sleep, it's much harder to feel confident. Your mental state is connected to your physical state.
That's something we often neglect, isn't it? We focus so much on mental techniques that we forget about the basics.
Yes, exercise, sleep, nutrition, they all affect your mood and confidence. When I started making my physical health a priority, I noticed a huge difference in my overall confidence levels.
That's such great advice. And I think one final thing is to celebrate your progress regularly. Look back at how far you've come. It helps maintain perspective when you're focused on what you haven't achieved yet.
Absolutely. I keep a journal where I write down my achievements, big and small. When I'm feeling down, I look back at it and remember all the things I've accomplished. It's a powerful reminder of my capabilities.
That's a wonderful practice. I think we all need to do that more. Acknowledge our progress instead of always focusing on what's next.
Absolutely. And with that, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. Confidence is a journey, not a destination. It requires daily practice, patience, and self-compassion.
I couldn't agree more, Anna. Thank you for sharing all these insights and stories. I think our listeners are going to get a lot out of this episode.
Thank you, Jack. And thank you to all our listeners for joining us today. We hope this episode helps you build the confidence you deserve.
Now let's dive into some useful vocabulary from today's episode, Anna.
Yes, these are phrases that will help you sound more natural when talking about confidence and personal development.
Number 1, to take action despite the fear.
This means doing something even though you're scared or nervous. It emphasizes that courage isn't the absence of fear, but acting in spite of it.
For example, I was terrified of public speaking, but I decided to take action despite the fear and signed up for a workshop.
Another one, a fixed trait.
This refers to a characteristic that doesn't change. When we say confidence is not a fixed trait, we mean it's something you can develop, not something you're born with and can never change.
Many people think intelligence is a fixed trait, but research shows you can actually improve it with effort.
Next, to challenge your thoughts.
This means to question and examine your negative thoughts to see if they're actually true or just habits.
When you notice a negative thought, write it down and challenge it by asking for evidence.
Next phrase, to reframe a situation.
This means to view a situation from a different, more positive perspective without denying the reality of it.
Instead of seeing rejection as failure, try to reframe it as a learning opportunity.
Next, to build momentum.
This means to create increasing force or energy through consistent action. When you achieve small wins, you build momentum for bigger achievements.
Once I started seeing progress in my English studies, I built momentum and became more motivated to continue.
Next phrase, to step outside your comfort zone.
This means to do something that challenges you and makes you feel a bit uncomfortable, which is necessary for growth.
To improve your speaking skills, you need to step outside your comfort zone and talk to native speakers.
Next, to feel discouraged.
This means to lose confidence or enthusiasm, often because of setbacks or failures.
I felt discouraged after failing the exam, but I decided to try again with a better study plan.
Next phrase, to face a challenge.
This means to confront or deal with a difficult situation or problem.
Facing a challenge can be scary, but it's also how we grow and become stronger.
Next, to gain confidence.
This means to gradually build or acquire confidence through experience and practice.
You gain confidence by taking on small challenges and successfully completing them.
Next phrase, to have self-doubt.
This means to have feelings of uncertainty about yourself or your abilities.
It's normal to have self-doubt sometimes, but don't let it stop you from trying.
Next, to overcome an obstacle.
This means to successfully deal with or get past something that blocks your progress.
She overcame the obstacle of her fear of flying by taking short flights first.
Next phrase, to build resilience.
This means to develop the ability to recover quickly from difficulties and keep going.
Every time you bounce back from a setback, you build resilience.
Next, to acknowledge a feeling.
This means to recognize and accept that you're feeling a certain way without trying to deny or suppress it.
Before you can change a negative feeling, you need to acknowledge it first.
Next phrase, to stay motivated.
This means to keep your enthusiasm and drive going, especially when things get challenging.
Setting small goals helps you stay motivated as you achieve them one by one.
Next, to nurture confidence.
This means to care for and develop your confidence over time, like tending to a plant.
You nurture confidence by practicing regularly and celebrating your progress.
Final phrase, to cultivate a positive mindset.
This means to actively develop an optimistic and constructive way of thinking.
You cultivate a positive mindset by practicing gratitude and challenging negative thoughts.
Great job on all those vocabulary words, Anna. Our listeners should find these really helpful.
Yes, these phrases will definitely help you talk about confidence and personal growth in a more natural and sophisticated way.
Now let's end with some reflection questions for our listeners to think about, Anna.
Yes, these questions will help you apply what we've discussed today to your own life and learning journey.
Question 1. What is one area of your life where you'd like to build more confidence, and what's one small action you could take this week to start?
Think about this carefully. Maybe it's speaking up in meetings, trying a new hobby, or starting a conversation in English. What small step could you take?
Question 2. When you have negative thoughts about yourself, what's one technique you can use to challenge or reframe those thoughts?
Remember the techniques we discussed: questioning the thought, looking for evidence, or reframing the situation in a more positive light.
Question 3. Who are the people in your life that support and believe in you? How can you spend more time with them?
Consider the impact of your environment on your confidence. Surrounding yourself with supportive people makes a huge difference.
Question 4. What's a small win you can celebrate today, whether it's in your English learning or any other area of your life?
Don't forget to acknowledge your progress. Every achievement, no matter how small, is worth celebrating.
Question 5. When you face a setback or failure, how can you respond to it with self-compassion instead of self-criticism?
Remember, setbacks are part of the learning process. How can you be kind to yourself when things don't go as planned?
Question 6. What's one way you can step outside your comfort zone this month, even if it feels a little scary?
Growth happens outside your comfort zone. What challenge could you take on?
Question 7. How can you incorporate more positive self-talk into your daily routine?
Start noticing the words you use with yourself. Are you your biggest supporter or your biggest critic?
Question 8. What's one thing you've been putting off because you don't feel confident enough? And what's the first step you could take toward doing it?
Don't wait for confidence to come to you. Take action and confidence will follow.
How has your confidence level changed over the past year, and what contributed to that change?
Take a moment to reflect on your journey. What have you learned about yourself?
Final question. What advice would you give to a friend who is struggling with self-doubt?
Sometimes giving advice to others helps us see what we need to hear ourselves. What would you tell them?
Wow, what an episode, Anna! I feel so inspired.
I know, right? This was such a great conversation. I hope our listeners learned a lot and feel empowered to work on their confidence.
Remember, building confidence is a journey. Be patient with yourself, celebrate your progress, and keep taking action.
And most importantly, believe in yourself. You have more capability than you know.
Thanks for joining us today, everyone. We'll see you next time on the English Daily, the podcast.
Bye for now. Keep learning, keep growing, and keep believing in yourself. Your learning journey doesn't stop here. Keep improving your English. Click the next video or explore more episodes we've picked just for you. See you in the next lesson.